That's number one. You kind of reset.
Painful, tender to the touch. May also
Same shoulder length, and the other. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. This is Real Health with Brandi and Amir. I'm Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor. Brandi Rashidian, my other half. And we're really happy you're with us. I think we're on episode 12. All right, 12.
We got a confirmation from Sean.
All right, there you. Thank you, Sean. So episode 12, and this is the podcast where we talk about how you can feel better, get stronger, live longer, and feel younger. Very good.
I was very certain about that.
That's the one everybody wants. I think I certainly want to feel younger all the time. You know, I don't know if I told you, I was sitting around with a group of chiropractors around the table. We meet once a month, and I asked everybody, when do you guys start feeling your age? Because I ask every patient too, and the patients typically say, my late 30s, I started to feel my age.
Right.
Well, these guys said, my late 60s, I started to feel my age, which is 30 years later, which I thought was pretty good. So
I think I know what we can attribute to that.
Tell me.
Like, I think the biggest thing is motion.
Yeah,
is
movement,
that chiropractors are, their job, like many others, there's other physical, jobs out there, but it is so physical. You guys are constantly like.
What we just did this morning, I did an hour-long presentation at a assisted living facility.
Yeah.
And
Homewoods, shout out to Homewoods.
Yeah, very good. And thank you for having us. Hopefully you're listening. But that was it. Like, literally, probability of survival from cancer was higher if you're not sedentary, if you're moving around, and if you have better posture.
I mean, we tell patients all the time, motion is life.
That's right.
Like, you have to move.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who are sitting and watching us, maybe it's time to stand up and watch us.
That's right. Why don't you walk on your treadmill while you watch us, or just listen? Maybe they're listening. Not everybody watches the video.
That's true.
So they're missing your beautiful smile. But, on this podcast, we take articles, latest news, and we kind of talk about what that means to you and what the wellness perspective of it would be, because most medical news is medical, not wellness. And, real quick, when I was in chiropractic school, we would study diseases, like pathology class, and you study these diseases, you start to manifest the symptoms in your body.
You think you have everything.
Yeah, they call it medical studentitis. Of course, hypochondriacs experience the same thing, But you study a disease, you start to experience those things. Well, if you don't want to experience those things, don't study the diseases. But we need to know what the diseases are. But what we don't do is we don't study wellness.
It's true.
What if we studied wellness in detail? Like, what does it mean to be well? How does it feel? What are the symptoms of being well, healthy, having longevity?
How about what's at the base of that? What does the body do when it's well? How does it communicate?
Right. And guess what chiropractors study? Once we're done studying diseases, we study wellness.
Yeah.
And how to increase longevity and youthfulness.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why a lot of these chiropractors don't start to feel their age till their late 60s.
Right. Well, we look at the body's communication differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times when symptoms occur from a disease process, we initially look at those symptoms as a symptom of the disease, as opposed to the body's communication and going, hey, something's going differently here.
Yeah.
Right? We look at fevers
Don't ignore me.
Right. We look at fevers as a symptom of illness, but it's really a reflection of wellness.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the body's natural ability to go, hey, I'm going to take care of this that's going on that shouldn't be here. I need to raise the body's temperature. Now, there are things that could happen. It could get locked, whatever. And it could become dangerous, but really it's the body's manifestation of doing what it's supposed to do. It's a sign of health.
Yeah, exactly. Symptoms are actually your body being healthy.
Right.
Because the elderly population, when they get pneumonia, they don't spike fevers, and no one knows they had a fever.
Right.
And then they end up, unfortunately, passing from that.
Right.
But if they had a fever, someone would check them and know. So actually, it's healthy to have fevers. It's healthy to vomit. It's healthy to cough. It's healthy to...
Right.
All these things are actually... But, Dr. Joe Dispenza says if your mind, like studying diseases, if your mind can make you sick, your mind also has the power and ability to make you well. So,
100%.
but let's jump right in. Our first article is from U.S. News, and the title is 1 in 10 ICU patients with heart issues has illicit drugs in their system. This was Friday, August 18th is when it came out. More than 1 out of every 10 patients who land in an ICU with potentially deadly heart emergency test positive for recreational drug use. This is a new French study. About 11% of nearly 1,500 patients admitted to a French intensive cardiac care unit for a heart crisis tested positive for cannabis, opioids, cocaine, methamphetamine, or other illicit drugs. Researchers said in the journal is called Heart. Drugs were even more common in younger heart patients, with 1 out of 3 patients under the age of 40 testing positive. The study can't say whether the drug use caused these patients' heart problems, although drugs are known to have negative heart health effects.
Right. And we know some of these are a direct, like we know, right? Everyone knows cocaine and methamphetamine have dire consequences to the
Yeah, they increase your heart rate, blood pressure.
correct. Like there's things that it artificially increases, decreases,
Right.
whatever the case may be. So my one question with this, so this is how my brain works because my brain is built for strategy and I want data. So I want to know like which of these drugs were more prominent in patients, or could we not even extrapolate that? Right? Like which of those patients had, were cocaine or methamphetamine, what was the highest use, or is it just that they were on
did
drugs?
give some numbers here.
Okay.
In the back of the article, it said most frequently detected substance was cannabis at 9%, opioids at 2%, cocaine at 2%, methamphetamines at 1%, ecstasy 0.6%. But like you said, it doesn't say which like these 9% that use cannabis, what was their heart condition. Because we
Right.
know cannabis can slow heart rate and drop blood pressure, especially
Right.
strong cannabis. That's what the article said also. And then the others can raise blood pressure. And, not good luck when you mix it. It says 12 times more likely to die or
Right.
have poor outcomes if they had more than one drug in their system.
Right.
And then, like you were saying before we started recording, is how many of them were honest about what they actually use?
Right, because depending on the person and how they metabolize the drug, depending on when they last took it, and the strength of that drug, like cannabis can be only 3 days in your system, but up to 6 weeks. So, it is possible that there's so many more contributing factors than what this could really pull is my one big concern about this.
Bottom line, one thing that was true and sure is that the ones who did have drugs in their system had more complications, they needed more
Correct.
emergency intervention, and there were more fatalities
Right.
from them. 57% admitted to using. Wow.
Right. So what that's getting at, so what was it? 50
Most concerning, only 57% of
57.
those with drugs in their system admitted it.
Right. So just a little over half of the people tested even were honest about their drug use, knowing they were tested for
Yep.
it. So there could be so much more.
Yeah.
So I always think about that with these studies and I go, what other pharmaceuticals were they on? Because we also know that pharmaceuticals along with, and they even state this in the article, with like cocaine use, for instance, could be deadly.
Yeah, and then the article also says people who use cocaine are more likely to smoke.
Yeah.
So there's
Just
nicotine in their system. And then I saw somewhere, and don't quote me on this. I heard this on a separate podcast, health related podcast, and I don't remember which podcast it was. But they were talking about medical education. They said medical doctors receive zero education on over the counter drugs.
Interesting.
So then if someone's taking, let's say, acetaminophen or ibuprofen, for aches and pains, or an aspirin, and then they're also taking a over-the-counter acid reflux medication, which is common. They're also taking over-the-counter antihistamines for their allergies,
Right.
and then now they get put on a antidepressant and a blood pressure medication.
Right.
You're like, really, there's like 6 drugs in this person's body,
which are not always prescribed by the same doctors.
yeah, but the doctors sometimes don't even ask. They just go, what prescription medication are you
Or
on?
a patient doesn't remember.
Yeah.
So, it reminds me, a few weeks back we did a podcast regarding an article about pharmacists, and you
That's
had
right.
made a comment about, those should be our portal doctors when it comes to
Yes.
medications and pharmaceuticals.
Please write this down.
So check
follow
with your
it.
pharmacist.
Yeah.
If you are taking a pharmaceutical and an over-the-counter or
Yeah.
supplementation, there's still contraindications with supplements.
We
We're
have
super
multiple
cautious.
pharmacists who are patients of ours in the
Mhm.
practice, and I regularly hear them once a day, at least once a day. They get on the phone with the doctor and say, "Hey doc, I don't want to overstep my boundaries, but you prescribed this. Did you know the patient's already on this, this, and this?" And the doctor usually says, "Oh yeah, I know. Is it a problem?" And the pharmacist says, "Yeah, it's a problem," and they change it.
Right.
So unfortunately, not all pharmacists do that, which is a little scary. But for you, anytime you're prescribed something, you go to your pharmacist
Yeah.
and you tell the pharmacist, "Hey, I'm taking these supplements, I'm taking these herbs, I'm taking these over-the-counter medications, and I was just prescribed this. What do you think? What's it going to do to me?" Let those that's what they're trained for.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
underutilized.
And even great stuff like, I'm a huge proponent of supplements and essential oils and whatnot, but most people don't even think about essential oils and taking that internally.
Oh, yeah.
And it can be so dangerous.
Essential oils are so highly concentrated.
They're so powerful.
They are drugs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're bad.
Correct.
You just got to use them carefully.
Right. And if you are on any pharmaceutical use at all, you really should think twice about taking it internally. The
Yes.
challenge with something like essential oils is there's a lot of people out there who recommend them, who, are saying to friends and family, "Hey, you
These
need to
are
take this."
sales reps with multi-level marketing companies
Correct.
with zero training.
With zero medical training or background often. And so be cautious, because anything you take
Yeah.
can increase the half-life of a pharmaceutical, which means it will stay in your body longer,
Yeah.
or can render it ineffective. So when oils really came out on the market, there was a huge boom of, they called them oily babies, because women were taking oils internally and it was rendering their birth control ineffective, and they were getting pregnant unexpectedly. And so that's one thing I always remind people of when we're talking about oils, or I know somebody's selling it on the side.
Our
I'm
third
like,
one's
"Please be
not an
careful."
oily baby, is he?
No, but my
Okay.
kids all love oils. So
All right. Well, you didn't ever do oral contraceptives.
Correct.
Yeah. Quick fact. I read the book, The Undisputed Truth, written by Mike Tyson. Very long book, very graphic book. But one thing he talks about is he used to take a lot of cocaine before his fights. And then right before he would step in the ring, he would smoke a ton of marijuana to bring his heart rate back down and calm himself down.
Interesting.
So and you go, that guy was amazing. Can you imagine how much better he'd be if he wasn't on drugs? I mean,
Yeah.
he's admitted he's in Narcotics Anonymous. He is, but not so anonymous. But he's written all about it in his book. And I don't know if I'm going to recommend the book or not. If you're a fan of Mike Tyson, be careful, because like I said, certainly don't read it with children. Don't let children read the book. But yeah, there's a lot of drug use. There's a lot of violence in the book. But he used to smoke marijuana right before his fights. So next article. This is from Health News. Cancer rates are increasing in people under 50. That's kind of scary, because the article talks about how we don't screen. Most people don't do cancer screening till after the age of 45 or 50, and even 45-year-olds, which we're both past 45 right now. We don't look it clearly.
Well,
but
we
are.
also decided we were never going to grow up. So I think there's
Yes.
something to that. So
Yes, hopefully you don't mind. I stayed 30. I've been 30 for almost 19 years, and you've been 28 for almost 19 years.
sure.
Which is when we got married. Cancer rates are increasing. So, a new study finds cancer rates are rising for people under 50. Rates of gastrointestinal cancer, especially, are rising. And what's interesting is cancer rates for people over 50 have dropped.
Right.
That's interesting. I wonder why. A new report has found that rates of gastrointestinal cancers in younger adults may be rising faster than any other type of cancer. And they reported on this in the Journal of American Medical Association. August 16th is when it came out. It says GI cancers are among the most common types of early onset cancers occurring in people under 50. That includes colon cancer, rectal cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer seems to be one of the most deadly ones, but stomach cancer is up there. Colon cancer seems to be the most treatable of those, because it says because young people aren't routinely screened for many cancers until their mid-40s. Many cases go undetected until they are diagnosed at a later, more aggressive stage. The results are quite alarming because not only is colorectal cancer increasing among young people, a fact that is now well known, it is increasing even more rapidly in some of the less common GI malignancies, such as bile duct cancer and pancreas cancer.
Yeah, and you have to go why. Like my challenge with some of these studies is that while yes, they can provide some great indications about what might be changing, what we miss in most of these is why, right? So I'm looking at this and going, why in the world? What is it? How do you contract? Like, how do you get stomach cancer? Like, what would cause that, right? So there's H. pylori. You probably know more about that than I do,
It's a virus.
right?
Well, it's a bacteria. Sorry, it's a
Bacteria.
bacteria lives in your stomach.
Right. And so I was like, well, how do you get that, right? Because if it naturally lived in your body, then it would just be about overgrowth, right? And there are certain like overgrowth of certain types of bacteria. We know that strep is one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have an amount of strep that lives in our body all the time. And when we get like strep throat, it's because that there's been an overgrowth of that and our body can no longer contain it.
There's
right?
strep in everybody's throat.
Right.
It's only bad when it overgrows.
So some of the some of what I was looking at, I was like, well, how do you get like H. pylori? And here's what it says. It says living in crowded conditions, living without reliable supply of clean water, living in a developing country, and living with someone who is infected with H. pylori. So, and H. pylori is going to cause an inflammation of the stomach and things like that. So, which is, I guess, leading to the cancer. So, why is it? Is this data from the United States? Are we seeing that it's an increase in the United States with people under 40? Because then I'm going, well, if it's H. pylori, why in a developed country already where we're supposed to have decent drinking water, why is this happening? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, there are a lot of cities now that look in America that look like third world countries. So you look at some of the news on homelessness in San Francisco. San Francisco has had a huge decline in just how clean it is, and socioeconomic status has dropped significantly where we live now. Baltimore and Washington, D.C., I don't know if you know this, last week they called the National Guard because crime was so high, police couldn't handle it.
Wow.
So there's all this violent crime going on. I don't know why this is, but America is on a decline, and some of that, I'm going to get controversial. Please forgive me. Don't cancel me on this. I think it's the whole defund the police movement had something to do with the crime going up and the just bad things in streets.
Gotcha.
unclean streets and things like that. Some people just don't feel safe anymore,
Yeah.
and more people feel free to commit crimes. So, anyways, things are changing, though. I think things are going. People are starting to realize what's right and so on. And I don't want to get political, and please don't take this as a thing. I'm just stating that there seems to be a movement of increased crime in certain cities.
Yeah. You could be right there. It could be, something slow moving, even like that. I find this so fascinating that we have this increase, but I don't think we're asking the right questions. I don't think we should be saying,
Right.
oh,
I mean, the article did talk about how, socioeconomic status and environmental factors have a lot to do with this increase. Access to healthcare, exposure to risk factors, the differences in gut microbiome composition may all play a role. So this actually is slightly revolutionary because, even 10 years ago, they wouldn't have looked at the microbiome.
right.
And look at the good bacteria and the balance between the good and the bad and so
But now
on.
I'm going to say something a little controversial.
Sure.
But what this study and many others that we're seeing when it comes to cancer, what this is really leaning towards is lifestyle. And that is something none of us really want to hear, because it feels like cancer happens to us right now. And in some cases that is the case for, like, we talked about forever chemicals.
We have
and there
tremendous
are things.
sympathy for those of you who are battling cancer or who have battled cancer, who have gotten
absolutely.
over cancer. Listen, we respect you, we love you, and we never, ever, ever say
No.
that you caused it or you wanted it or any of that. That is not what we're saying.
But there are things that we choose to do in our lifestyles that increase our risk. And this
Right.
is coming from somebody, my whole family was laden with cancer.
Right.
I've lost majority of the women in my family to cancer.
Yeah.
So there's really 3 of us in our family that have not gotten cancer.
Yeah.
So you then have to ask yourself why. If you want to
and
know
they all got it
genetically.
in their 30s.
Oh, I mean, my mother was diagnosed at 24 and died at 29.
Yeah.
So there's, and most of the women were very young, below 40 when they were diagnosed. So
the article also says many studies argue that increasing obesity rates drive the spike in young people's GI cancers.
Of course. Like, that makes complete sense to me.
Which obesity is a lifestyle issue.
Absolutely.
Again, we have sympathy for you, and we're not saying obesity is your fault. Certainly, you think about 50 years ago, did we have as much junk food as we do today?
No.
Did we have as much fast food as we do today? We have as much additives and preservatives as we do today?
Correct. So that's why these kind of things, just inside, I go, it just seems silly to me sometimes that we spend so much money putting into these studies to note the obvious. Maybe if we cut our fast food consumption and we cut some of our other toxins and we moved a little bit more and we drank better water.
I mean,
those are all
we
things
know,
that-
for example, the microwave didn't exist 50 years ago, right? Now, if you microwave in plastics, you increase bad estrogen in your body. You give yourself more chance of uterine cancer and breast cancer.
You can also do that by leaving water bottles in the car under heat.
Yeah.
To leach those toxins into the water and then drink it later.
Yeah, plastics, just overall plastics, storing stuff in plastics on. And then we know inflammation is high in the body because of some of these things. We're eating things that aren't considered food by the body, so it's not absorbing them properly.
Anything processed that's white, reduce it.
We've got poor diet, and I'm reading the article, poor diet rich in refined sugars can cause chronic inflammation in the GI tract and an increased susceptibility to cancer. So because this stuff is worse for us, younger people are getting it.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And obviously the other one is reduced physical activity.
Yeah.
I mean, how many video games are out there now?
Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that, because we're saying people under 40. Well, people who are over 50 had a good portion of their life where they didn't have all that crap. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's true.
Like, I remember when the whole TV dinner movement came out. That's when processed food, you know what I mean, in the early to mid 80s.
Do they
that's
still have
when
TV dinners?
Oh yeah.
They don't call them TV dinners.
They don't call them TV dinners
I think they call
anymore.
them podcast dinners.
They might. But I have to tell you, even myself, I walk by the freezer section and
They
those
look
TV
appealing.
dinners. I look at them a little longingly.
Yeah.
Like I have a hard time going to
Yeah.
Costco.
I remember those days. You would take the wrapper off, you'd poke a hole in the plastic, and you stick it in the microwave, and you have a full dinner. You got your vegetable, your whatever.
Oh, and your dessert. I was so excited about that little dessert section, that little square of delectable whatever it was.
Yes.
Okay. So there are some other causes of stomach cancer just to make sure that you're aware of. Smoking, of course, increases the risk of many types of cancer, including stomach cancers. Being aged over 60, I think that's interesting. I wouldn't necessarily consider that a risk factor. If you're over 60, you don't have to claim that. But they do say people over 60 have a higher risk factor.
60 is the new 40.
Infection with the H. pylori, diet high in smoked, pickled, or salted foods, and low in fresh vegetables or fruit, alcohol consumption, obesity, chronic gastritis. So those are all things, and there's a few others that would cause you to be a higher risk factor. So eat good food, drink clean water, move, and you will be less susceptible to those things.
And yeah, no, don't live a sedentary life.
Yeah.
I want you to understand one thing, because the end of the article, it talks about how we need more strategies for early detection and prevention. But how can someone use those two in the same sentence?
Yeah.
They're not the same. Early detection is not prevention. Prevention is not early detection. You're catching a disease earlier, you're treating it earlier. That's early detection. It's not prevention. Most doctors use it in the same sentence and then say, make sure you're getting your colonoscopies and your mammograms.
Yeah.
And your pap smears, and make sure you're getting those things. And that's early detection and prevention. How does mammograms prevent cancer?
It doesn't.
Actually, one of the side effects is cancer because you get radiated. But anyways, work on prevention. Prevent.
Yeah, but prevention is what you decide to do and change.
Yeah.
It's not a pill that you take.
No.
It's not a quick fix. It's
No.
what lifestyle changes
Yeah.
do you want to make available to you and your family that will reduce the instances of all disease processes.
I'll tell you this. You could do everything right and you could still get cancer.
Correct.
But there's a difference. If you did everything right and you got cancer, there's a really high possibility you'll beat it.
Yeah.
And go through it and be okay afterwards. If you did everything wrong and got cancer, now that cancer can knock you down.
Yeah. You know, in
In
your
a bad
book,
way.
you have one of, I think it was Muhammad Ali's quotes about getting in the ring, right?
Yeah.
About the fight. And you use that as an analogy
Yes.
for healthcare. Do you want to share what that is? Because I think
Yeah,
that's
Muhammad
super
Ali said
powerful.
the fight is won or lost away from witnesses.
Mhm.
In the gym, on the road, long before I dance under the lights. Which means how you prepare determines how you win.
Right.
Whether you win, how you prepare, not how you fight, how you prepare. That's what increases your chance of survival when
Yeah.
it comes to cancer or other big diseases.
Yeah, or anything. You know, here's the reality is if you get into an accident and you still have to have medical attention, how you've been treating your body will determine in part your results.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't matter. So what you've been putting into your body
Yep.
is what allows the body to heal and regenerate, right? It's one of the components, not everything.
Yeah.
You know, how well your brain can communicate with the rest of your body, that is one of the determining factors. So look at all of the things that are going to be a contributing factor and look at how you can tweak each one of those.
Yeah.
Or even tweak one. If you tweak one, you've improved your chance of
Right.
success in anything.
Speaking of that, I'm going to promote our book for a second. This is called Cracking the Stress Secret, How to Turn Pressure into Power. It's a 10-step process of increasing your chance of survival when you're faced with anything that's stressful, like cancer.
Yeah. Or a job change, or a child being sick, or anything, right? Because
Anything.
it's not just health. It's
agree.
not just physical health. So, shameless plug.
Thank you for allowing that. So we had two other articles I wanted to go through. I think we could probably blow through one of them really quickly, save one for the next week's podcast, because that one I do want to spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
this third article is called Dengue Fever. I like saying that word. It's like other words. Dengue, spelled Dengue, dengue fever in Florida on the rise as virus cases grow. Here's how to spot symptoms. It says 2 cases in South Florida County, which includes Fort Lauderdale, brings to 10 the number of locally acquired cases this year, the Florida Department of Health said in a new surveillance report. 8 cases have been confirmed in Miami-Dade County, also under alert for the virus. Dengue is spread through mosquito bites and sickens about 1 in 4 people infected with the virus. Cases in the United States usually occur among people who travel to countries where the illness is widespread. But infected travelers can bring the virus back to the local mosquito population, which can lead to locally acquired cases. So someone who has the disease or is carrying the virus gets bit by a mosquito, then that mosquito goes and bites someone else.
Right.
Or
And there's actually 4 different related viruses that the mosquito or
Correct.
the person could be a carrier of, which means you could be infected
Yep.
multiple times if the other mosquitoes carry the other strains.
Yep.
of
It
those
says
viruses.
Florida health officials reported 190 cases among people who traveled to dengue endemic regions within 2 weeks of becoming ill. Nearly 200 people in the United States have had travel-related dengue so far this year, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported. The virus is more common in U.S. territories such as American Samoa, Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. That's sad. I like those places. And
Don't worry, we're still going.
oh yeah, I'm not afraid. Just don't let the mosquitoes bite you. And so the symptoms, people will probably want to know, what are the symptoms? Muscle or joint pain, eye pain, nausea, vomiting, rash. I mean, this is such common things. Gee, it could be anything.
Could be mistaken.
Most people recover within 1 week, but some have severe complications that can emerge a day or 2 after the fever goes away. Some warning signs include belly pain or tenderness, repeated vomiting, nose or gum bleeding. That's kind of scary. Vomiting, blood in the stool, or being tired, restless, irritable. About 1 in 20 people have severe dengue and would seek care at a hospital or other health facility, the CDC said. Infants, pregnant women, and people who have had past infections face a higher risk of severe dengue. And like you said, there's 4 different types, which means people can get infected multiple times. Because viruses you develop immunity to, but if there's 4 types of it, then you can catch it 4 different times.
Correct.
In your lifetime. The virus infects about 400 million people worldwide. That's a lot. It's more than the population of the United States. And about 40,000 people die annually from severe dengue. So it is technically kind of serious. So if you're experiencing those things, it could be a virus. If you're not better within a week, go to the hospital. If you vomit blood, you should definitely go to the hospital. No matter what. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a virus or what. That's a bad thing. It could be the H. pylori you were talking about, because H. pylori can cause ulcers in the stomach, which can cause bleeding.
And then I want to just recommend that before you go out and you choose a repellent to use, go and look at, because we're talking about chemicals that can repel something, right? Which means they have to be somewhat harsh. And so or could be. So you want to make sure and just do your due diligence. There's things out there that can be detrimental. It has been recommended. EWG is one of my most favorite sites to go to.
EWG.org.
Yes. To go and, which is Environmental Working Group. So they're a nonprofit that goes and looks at every chemical that's in every single product that's out on the market and gives you the information you need to make a good decision. So they have on their website some of the top choices. I was surprised to find that I have always steered away from DEET. DEET makes me very nervous, especially using it with children. And I would still say you definitely want to look into that. but DEET is actually the second in the top choices by EWG. So,
Interesting.
and part of their recommendation has to do with the risk factors of the bug bites versus the risk factors of the chemicals. So they're taking that into consideration as well.
Just remember, we're not endorsing any products. We're
Nope.
just telling you what EWG
Yeah, and we're saying
website
go look.
states. Yeah.
I want you to go look so you can see. You need to be the champion of your own health and your
What
own
was number one?
decisions. It's picaridin.
Okay.
It's a 5 to 10% concentration that can protect against ticks and mosquitoes for 5 to 12 hours. A 20% concentration product provides all-day protection from mosquitoes and ticks.
Citronella oil wasn't one of them?
Citronella is in here, but it's down a lot lower. And here's why, I think, because now it says oil of lemon eucalyptus with enhanced PMD concentration is what they would, another good choice. When it comes to essential oils, there are a lot of products on the market. Not every product is unadulterated, which means sometimes or often they will have chemicals mixed in with the essential oils. And so they don't always act as essential oils should. There's only one or two companies on the market that actually test their essential oils internally and externally, which is super important to me, especially if I'm taking them internally at all. But I have found citronella, when it's straight citronella essential oil, works beautifully. It has for
I've
our
seen
family
great results. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it depends on the concentration. It depends on if it's mixed with any other chemical.
Right.
There's a lot that go into into
You know,
that.
you know
So,
that joke where the bear is chasing two guys, and the guy says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you."
yeah.
Well, you know, are there mosquito attractants that you can put on your buddy you're traveling with, so that all the mosquitoes go to the buddy and then they leave you alone? You know, there's those bushes you can plant that
Yes.
like attract. What are those called? Do you
There's
know?
a butterfly one that attracts
Yeah.
the butterflies.
Well, there's ones that attract all the mosquitoes and bugs and everything else too. 'Cause, like when you walk past them, like if I'm ever jogging outside, there are these they buzz because they have so much
Oh,
bugs
that's
in
so
them.
funny.
Yeah, and I think they attract all
Now,
the bugs.
lemongrass will it's a deterrent. So you can plant lemongrass around your house or around the pool, and those are really pretty.
And then you also didn't you say cedarwood?
Cedarwood oil you can get that from a landscaping like company because you'll need it in much larger quantities than what you can get from
You
like
spray
an
it on your
essential oil.
lawn. It
Yeah,
gets rid of gnats.
yeah, it actually kills gnat larvae, so it can actually reduce the gnat population by like 85%. If you're using the right product, which is pretty impressive. So.
Yeah. So hopefully that's all helpful. Comment, please. We really appreciate you watching and listening. If you want to help us out, please subscribe. But really, I just want you to know how much we appreciate you just for listening and watching. Next podcast, I want to talk about salt alternative because the FDA has approved a salt alternative that may or may not be harmful. And you'll want to know, should I use it? Should I stay with regular salt? Let's talk about that, and we'll spend a few minutes on that, and we'll have other articles to go over as well. So please tune in, and
I'm excited.
many blessings. Take care. Thank you. See you soon.